What's up guys, my name is Zero Heroes and welcome back to more Gates of Hell news, and today we are going to be talking about Developers Blog 153 Community Update 4 Part 1. Now this is all about a new game mode called Frontlines. Now this mode isn't actually new to the Gates of Hell series or Call to Arms series. It was actually introduced back into the original Men of War Assault Squad 2 game, if you remember that game mode. So this is going to be talking about this new Frontline game mode, which was actually been reduced, which was back in Men of War Assault Squad 2, and it's going to be talking about everything you need to know about this Frontline game mode, how it works, you know, and how it's actually changed from the original Frontlines game mode that was in Men of War Assault Squad 2. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that, and I'm going to be discussing everything and letting you know about my thoughts about how this Frontline is going to change this Gates of Hell game, and how I think it's going to be really actually good for the game as well, because I think adding new game modes and adding new game modes in general is a good thing. And I know that's generally quite a generic thing to say, but I think it's really awesome. And I know as of today, you can play it today as of recording the 16th of December, and this came out on the Saturday the 14th of December, so I do know I'm a wee bit late to it, but as of today recording the 16th of December, you can switch your game to the beta mode, which I'll show you in another video, and you can play this Frontline game mode as of today, which I will be uploading later this week as well, so make sure you stay into the channel for that. But without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So it says, I'm going to try and zoom in, oh, too much. It says, so it's the community members, it's time to tell you about the next big free update that will be released this year. This update will add a good deal of content and some improvements too. It will be published in 2 parts, with the second part coming in early 2025. So what's in part 1? Keep reading. So just to let you know that this is a free update, so you don't have to pay for anything. It is completely free. All you need to do is just let your game download automatically, and the Frontline mode will be there. So this one's for you. So the 10th free game update, besides the 42 minor game updates since release of 2021, is coming. As most community members will know, we added several updates containing free content for Gates of Hell every year. This year will be no exception. Community Update 3, which was the last one, was completed in May, which was part of that roadmap which they showed ages ago. And the first part of Community Update 4 will also be ready before the year ends. So Community Update, they're saying that Community Update 4 is going to be, or part 1 at least, is going to be ready before Christmas or before New Year, which is absolutely crazy to think about, because I wouldn't actually think it would be ready that early. I think it would probably be done in early 2025, but they're saying that second part is actually going to come in 2025. So the fact that they've got a new content coming out before the end of the year is incredible news. So really, really good, really kind of proud of Gates of Hell or Barbara Studios right there. So what is the content? Well, as far as the base game goes, this additional content increases Ostfront, literally the name, to roughly double the content it had when it initially released. In all, it had a lot new content is coming your way, including, which they did mention in the last update, about the British faction coming, which I think will be part 2, but then again part 2 just might be another part of the new game mode, but I don't think it is. I think part 1 is part of, you know, the content as part of the new game mode, and then part 2 is a British faction, but I could be wrong. So let's talk about this new game mode, which is Frontline. Now, this new game mode, earlier this year, we stated that we plan to add another game mode 2024. During the sale that followed the release of Airborne DLC, we also stated that a legend will return. The legend we're talking about is this new game mode. It is a heavily reworked version of the classic one new with some important improvements that will make it more fun. The new game mode we're talking about is Frontlines. This mode has been requested by many in the community, so this is the legend we mentioned that will make a return. Now, the reason it's mentioning about the legend return is because I actually had to go back and think about, you know, what game it was actually talking about what game had Frontlines, and it wasn't Call to Arms, it was Men of War Assault Squad 2. And if you can see here, I'm actually in Gates of Hell here. You can see that these are the current type of game modes that you have in Men of War Assault Squad 2. So you had Assault Squad Zone, Extreme, Day Victory, Combat, Skirmish, and then you had Frontline, which had about 6 maps, and it was a lot different back then to what it is now. But let's go more into detail about that now. So how it works. Let's first explain how it works. So let's explain a short explanation for those unfamiliar with this game mode. Frontline is an asymmetrical, I know I don't know how to say that word, battle. The attacker has more resources than the defender, whereas the defender has an advantage because of the terrain the map offers. So think about it on kind of like a map scale where one person is the attacker, so you have a lot more resources to play around, but the defender has the advantage because it also has the terrain. So think about your heli maps, where the defender might get a hill map to defend, whereas the attacker will have to attack that hill, but will have more resources, where the defender will have less resources but has that terrain advantage. So at the start of the match, there is some preparation time, allowing the defender to augment the characteristics of the map with minefields, obstacles, clever positioning of weaponry, etc. Now this will be absolutely crucial for players who know their maps in this game. If you've been playing, Conquest, and you've been playing the Liberation Conquest, or you've been playing any of the DLC Conquest, and you know your maps, then this will go very, very well for you. For those who are new to this game mode, or new to all these sorts of maps, I think this will be quite a disadvantage for you, because you're still trying to learn the maps, and you're better more as an attacker than you are a defender. So I'd just be careful with that. During this preparation phase, the attacker buys all the weapons of choice used in the attack. The amount of manpower and CP, I still forget what CP stands for, is higher for the attacker than the defender. So the attacker has a broader range of options, and a lot of resources to play with. Now take that into consideration, please, when playing this game mode, as I do think it is still quite favoured for players that know this game and know maps really well. If you know your maps, and you know where to place mines, and you know where to place tank traps, and you know where to place barbed wires and anything, then this will work out advantage for you. But for those who are new players who don't know what the maps are, and maybe haven't discovered all the maps, like myself, I have to admit I don't know all the maps, then I think you're better as an attacker. So you're better playing as an attacker, because you have more resources, and you can kind of just throw everything at the defender as much as you got, whereas the defender actually has to think about strategic points of where to put mines, all the other tank trenches itself along the map. So this is something that I would carefully play with this, not as a new player, but more as an experienced player. So let's talk more about this game mode. Then when the preparation phase is over, it's up to the attacker to take 2 front lines. So each line consists of 3 smaller capture zones, followed by 1 capture zone. So think about it in a 2v2 frontline match, for instance, if both attackers accomplish this for the first front line is considered taken, then the defender must retreat and defend the second front line. So think about it, if you're on a map, you have 3 smaller zones that you first have to take, and then once you've captured those 3 zones, you have to then capture the big main one that the defender has to retreat to. So think about that logically, because I actually had to think about that in my head. So think of that as not 2v2. Think of it as like 4 players, playing against each other. So it might be like 2 defenders, playing against 2 attackers. So the 2 attackers would need to attack 3 zones, and those 3 zones would need to be defended by the 2 defenders. But if those 3 zones are taken, then it is considered captured, then the defenders, the 2-player defenders, would have to fall back to that one big main defense, larger capture zone, which will kind of make it easier to capture because it is bigger. So because that means you do have a larger area to kind of make it easier to capture, if that makes sense. So I hope that's kind of explained it a wee bit further down. I know that is still quite confusing, but hopefully once you've taken those 3 first zones, then the defenders have to fall back to defend the bigger capture zone. While the battle is raging, a timer counts down the total match duration set by the host. This means there is limited time to take the front lines. The more time in the match, the likelier it is for the attacker to capture both front lines. A round ends when the timer runs out or all flags are captured. So that is really, really important. That it's important when you're playing this game that you discuss how much time that you get when playing this game mode, because it can... Don't be stupid and set it for like 5 minutes, but I know Gates of Hell or Burwatchers will have probably like a minimum and a maximum time limit of how much you can set it for. So, but just play it, set it at a reasonable time. Don't set it at a really stupid time where it just doesn't work for the attackers to not have enough time to attack, or the defenders don't have, or the defenders get long enough to defend it for, because then the attackers, even though you do get a lot of resources, you will eventually run out of resources and manpower to then not be able to, because the time is too long. So make sure the host, whoever's hosting it, make sure you time it and discuss it with fellow teammates. So if you are playing with fellow players, make sure you discuss that with them so you know that it is a fair game, because if you set it at a time that's not realistic, nobody's going to play the game mode, and I think it's going to be quite an unfair game mode for the attackers. In previous games, so this is when now we're talking back to the front line of when Men of War Assault Squad 2 was in it. So in previous games with Frontlines, this is when round 2 would start. The map would reload and teams would switch sides, so the defender would become the attacker. However, at this point, it was common for players to quit and leave the game early, and it was rare for players to complete both rounds of Frontlines with all players. We wanted to remove this frustration while still capturing the essence of the game mode. We think the result is an improved version of this legacy game mode. Yeah, I have to say I completely agree. This was one of the main problems that I think that Frontline had in the original game, is that people did actually leave halfway through the game because they were switching sides. And even though that kind of made for quite a diverse and different type of game mode, it just was not fair for the players to switch around, because it just confused them, because they were already attacking and the players who were defending. So the fact that you had to switch around, I think, made it a lot more confusing, and therefore players just left because the defenders were already losing, and when they switched round to be attacker, then it became an advantage for them, whereas the attackers who were attacking now had to defend even though they were winning, but now they're losing because they're defending, if that makes sense. So this is why they removed this aspect, because it just made it too confusing, and then players would leave because it just wouldn't make sense, because the attacking side that was attacking would have to then switch sides to defending to then try and then win to defend, if that makes sense. I know that's confusing as hell, but it just wouldn't make sense. It just didn't make sense for the fact that the attackers who were already winning had to then switch sides to the defending to lose, to try and build it up again to defend to win. I know that's such a bizarre system to kind of wrap your head around, but that is the system that had in Men of War Assault Squad 2, and it was such a dumb system that when I played it, I thought, I'm never playing this game mode again. And because of that, no one actually did play Frontlines, and it was just such a dumb system to be a part of. And I 100% agree with this, and the fact that they're taking it out and now it's just the players who are attacking, and the players who are defending, it stays like that. and that's the way it should be unless you change it until after the game, you know, unless you're in the main lobby to change sides after the game is finished or before the game starts. So I really do like that, and in fact I really do appreciate that, because I do remember it's now coming back to me that this actually did happen to me, and it was frustrating as hell. Nobody played it. The Frontlines and Gates of Hell, so this is now. So how it works in Call to Arms Gates of Hell will be slightly different. To introduce a gameplay style with a much lower chance of players quitting, we have made an important change. The battle consists of one round during which both defenders and attackers have an equal chance of winning. If you want to trade places after the battle, you can still return to the lobby and play again, like I said. However, the balance should be such that both sides can win even if they have the same ability or experience. I kind of disagree with that, because this game mode is now very much independence of ability and experience. So if a really good player is good at defending, and then you have the attacker who's maybe not as good but just have loads of resources, the player who's defending is most likely still going to win, because they know how the maps work, and they know where to place mines, and they know probably how the attacker might attack. Even though you can bring out anything, the attacker can bring out anything he wants, and the defender won't know until they actually see the actual units that are attacking out. It will still be an advantage to the more experienced defender, because they know how the map works, and they know how the layout works of how to lay out tanks, tank traps, mines, AT mines, you know, trenches, whatever it is. I think this is still a game mode that very much does depend on ability and experience, but I understand how they're trying to balance that out so both sides can win. It doesn't matter of ability, of experience, but I still think this game mode will still very much heavily depend on ability and experience. But something I forgot to say is that because it is both rounds that do switch, there was 2 rounds, but now they're reducing it down to 1 round, so I do like that. So now that we've kind of, hopefully you guys understand how the game mode works, let's go on to what they're talking about, the maps, you know, what sort of maps they're adding, because in the Frontlines, in the original game, there was only, I think, 6 maps. So we intend to initially release 5 maps for this mode, kind of similar to the Gates of Hell then, to the Call to Arms, I think slightly less, ranging from a 1v1 to a 4v4. These will automatically scale down to the number of players in the lobby if the number is lower than the number of available slots. However, in this version of Frontlines, you can use bots. That means you'll have a way to even out the number of occupied slots, and you'll even be able to fight with human players on just one side. That's actually really, really good. So that basically allows you to now play any of the maps, even if, let's say, there's no other players, because you're now able to add bots to it. So you're now able to play all the maps possible that Gates of Hell offer, because they're adding in bots, and that means you're able to play them all, which is actually really good. And I know that bit, this bit does confuse even me. So it's down to the number of players in the lobby, and if the number is lower than the number of available slots, then however in this version of Frontline you can use bots. So I know that kind of just blows my mind as well. It's kind of just because I'm dyslexic and my brain doesn't actually calculate how numbers work, because, you know, I'm dyslexic, I'm slightly stupid, you know, that kind of just confuses me. But at the same time, I understand it, because you can, it's basing it off the number of players in the lobby. But if that number is too low, then you can use bots to fill up that lobby so you can play those maps, if that makes sense. Hopefully that's maybe explained a wee bit better. In due course, we will produce Frontlines maps for Ostfront, Talvasota and Liberation, and the first set will be 5 maps, and over time this number will go up to 12 and include maps from the Talvasota and Liberation DLCs as well. So the fact that they're even just telling you that there's going to be more maps and there's going to be more to it is absolutely amazing, because it just shows that they are still planning to add more maps. And it gives, what this does, this gives newer players who are new to this game mode as well as Gatesville, it gives an idea of how maps work within the game and what the terrain is like, and this will be useful for when they play like Conquest or just the campaign itself. And this gives new players, I guess, experience to build that up to be as good as the players who know the maps that are already in this game. So I think this is a very, very good development idea for helping new players come to the game, for number one, for this new Frontline game mode, but also about studying and understanding map terrain in this game, which is really important. Okay, so next thing to talk about is destructibility. So we have also worked on the destructibility of several assets. Several buildings will be made destructible within the community update 4. Work on this will continue and will keep bringing more assets destructibility into the future. When Community Update 4 goes live, we will list the upgraded assets in our changelog. Destructibility, especially of Ostfront assets, have been on many players' lists of wishes for changes in Call to Arms Gatesville, so we're glad to finally get this upgrading as well. Yeah, I do feel like destructibility needs to be better in this game. It's quite annoying when you have a tank that's not able to go through a building because it's not destructible, and I know some tanks can't go through buildings because it's either too small and the building's too big, which in that case I get, but it's when like maybe you have like a panther that can't go through, or a tiger that can't go through a small little house that's made of bricks because it can only go through a house that's made out of like wool or hay or something like that. So I think this needs to be addressed, and I'm glad they're addressing it now, because it does need to be kind of more detailed on how they're going to make destructibility for buildings, you know, when you use units or when you're even just blowing up. Can you use like TNT to blow up a building now with, you know, or can you use C4 to attach to a building to blow it up? Those are sort of things I kind of want to see in the changelog, and are we going to see those things? So let me know what your thoughts are down below with the destructibility on this. Do you think that these things are going to happen? And let me know in the comments down below that what do you think of this new Frontline game mode, or have you played the old Frontline game modes and do you think this better? While you're down there, make sure you subscribe as well. It would really help out the channel. And lastly, the open beta. So we intend to start the open beta on Monday the 16th, so as of recording today, so everyone will have the chance to try the new content for themselves. The open beta will run for several days. If nothing unexpected happens, Community Update 4 Part 1 will go live just in time for the Steam Winter Sale, which will be the 3rd sale in 2 months, which is absolutely insane. Yeah, so make sure you go check out this game just now, because it is on sale and it's absolutely incredible. I would highly recommend it. So now that we've talked about the Frontline, we've talked about destructibility and how the game mode, what is next for Gatesville? What is next for Content Update 4? Well, the first thing is that for Beta 1, Part 1 to be released for Update 4, Part 2 will be due in early 2025, or in 2025 as they said, and it will be released as soon as it's ready. We'll be detailing the contents for Part 1 when it goes live. Part 2 deserves a separate blog, which I think will be about the British faction, which we will produce as soon as possible. And lastly, did you know that, or anything else, we will feature the Steam Real-Time Strategy Fest starting January the 20th, 2025, so that's in a couple days time. And then during this fest, we'll probably introduce reworked Soviet uniforms, so stay tuned for that. That is very interesting to see, and I'd love to see how these reworked Soviet uniforms have changed from like a then to now kind of thing. And then the official announcement of the British faction will be made in 2025, which I think will be Part 2 of the Content Update 4. So there you go, guys. That is it for Development Update 153. Let me know what your thoughts are, or Community Update 4. Let me know what your thoughts are below. Do you like the idea of the new Frontline game mode? Did you like the old one? And now that they're separating, they're now making massive changes to it. Do you think that this is going to be a better Frontline game mode than the original one? Or did you like the original one better than this one? Let me know what your comments are down below, because it's really good to get your thoughts and your comments down below on this type of game mode. It lets me see how I can also improve my videos throughout the year. So there you go, guys. That is it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It is very exciting news. I'm definitely going to be playing this game mode and letting you know my thoughts on it in later this week. So stay tuned channel for that. But other than that, thank you so much for watching and all your support, and I will see you in the next video. See you later and goodbye.